In a world of music, magic, and moonlight, a young couple find their way back together despite everything trying to keep them apart. Don't miss the longest-running musical romantic comedy in world history, The Fantasticks, live on stage February 2nd through the 26th at Orlando Shakes. Featuring Broadway legend Davis Gaines. Order your tickets now by calling 407-447-1700 or visit orlandoshakes.org.
Hello and welcome to this Orlando Shakes special presentation on Facebook Live and YouTube, our live streamed Q&A with the creative team of The Fantasticks. I'm Douglas Love Ramos, Managing Director at Orlando Shakes. Tonight, sit back, relax, and learn about some of the people behind the scenes of our latest production of the season, The Fantasticks, which kicks off with opening night tomorrow in our Margison Theater. Also, we would love for you to join in the conversation from wherever you are. So leave us your questions about the production in the comment section, and we will try to get to as many as we can. Now it is my pleasure to introduce you to some of the members of the creative team of The Fantasticks. Please first welcome the director and choreographer of The Fantasticks. Let's say hello to Joshian Morales. Hey,
hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very well, great to see you. Let's now bring in the costume designer of The Fantasticks, someone who's no stranger to Orlando Shakes, our very own Denise Warner.
Hi there.
Hey. And last but not least, let me introduce you to the man behind the music. Please welcome our music director, John Cavazos.
Hello.
Hello, John. Thank you all so much for taking time to join us this evening. We know you have been very, very busy getting this show absolutely perfect for Orlando Shakes. So we're thrilled to have you join us tonight and peek behind the curtain a little bit at what our process is. So Joshian, let's start with you. I've got to ask, this is the longest running musical in the world, right? This has been running longer than any other show. And it features legendary Broadway performer Davis Gaines. And you've been tasked with taking one of these very famous musicals and incorporating it into a production for Orlando Shakes. So do you find it easy to work with shows that are already known? What were the challenges that were other than just putting on a show? What were the challenges that were specific to this situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's really an honor to, first of all, to be able to come here and direct and choreograph the show as a alumni from UCF, and obviously that partnership between Orlando Shakes and UCF is huge. So being able to come back behind the table and sort of be at the helm of this show is an honor. And then to top it all off, like you said, take one of the longest running, most well-known musicals in the world and adapt it for the stage. I mean, it was challenging in the way that I wanted to present the show for a 2022 audience. And because of the history of the show, it's so long, it was written so long ago. So a lot of the things don't necessarily translate well to today's audience and their sensibilities. So really looking at that was my first task, in then how to adapt it and make it fresh while still keeping the intent of the story and what the authors and the original people that conceived the show the story.
Oh no.
And taking their experiences with the show and their knowledge of the show and bringing all of that in was definitely a challenging task, but a fun one. I was up to the challenge.
Oh, that's great. Well, I've seen rehearsals and we've had some preview already, and it's so much fun. And part of what makes the show so much fun is this cast. They sound beautifully and beautiful, and we'll talk to our music man about that. But here you're working with some really fine actors, including Davis Gaines, who is the longest running Phantom on Broadway. Someone who comes to us. We've been lucky enough to have Davis with us several times for some shows, and he's come in. And what's that like here? Did you know Davis before? What was that collaboration like? And tell us about the role that he plays in the storytelling.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten a chance to work with him prior to this. I had seen him a couple times here on stage, actually, in Les Mis and Spamalot. So I was familiar with his work, and I heard nothing but great things. And yeah, I mean, it was intimidating, I guess, to come in, especially as a young director, and lead this Broadway veteran, this professional of so many years, and the wealth of knowledge and experience that he brings to the table, the people that he's worked with. And so in translation, those experiences that then come into our room has just been amazing. And not just professionally is he a brilliant person, he's a kind, very grateful and gracious person on stage and off. So that's been a joy. And yeah, the role that he plays, he's El Gallo, so he's our narrator of the show. He sort of is the one that instigates the story and helps the audience along through the several points of the show, and sort of intervenes himself into the story as well to kind of progress it in a comedic way. But yeah, it's been an honor to work with him and to be able to collaborate with him.
It's great. I mean, we have a lot of folks who have graced our stage before in this show, including Valerie Torres Rosario, who was the mistress in Evita, Manny Cadet, who has been doing lots of shows for us, especially recently. And but there's a comedy team in this particular production that has me in stitches, and that is Philip Nolan and Brandon Roberts as basically, but they're Henry and Mortimer, but they're billed as the actor and the man who dies. So, but these two are so funny, and they have such chemistry that they bring to their roles and to their relationship as a duo in the play as well. What was that like? What was that experience like for you with these guys?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm from Orlando, Florida. I was originally born and raised in Puerto Rico, but grew up here. And so I grew up seeing Brandon and Philip on stage in various capacities throughout town. So when I had the opportunity to be able to work with them, I jumped at the chance. And honestly, a lot with them, they are the experts of comedy. They know it inside and out, and they have a really good sense of what's going to play and what's going to land with the audience within their comedic style and comedic timing. So I let them play, and I tried my best to make sure that what they were doing then served our story and where we were going, and where we needed to land. But yeah, I mean, it was fairly easy process. I just said go and let them play, and play they do.
They certainly do, and certainly to our benefit.
Yes.
It's really, really fun, and so much of what they do, it makes me laugh days after seeing it. So it's been a lot of fun. Denise, here we are. You have done so many wonderful costumes for so many wonderful shows in your tenure with Orlando Shakes. How did you approach this one? I know you in particular, I know just from our friendship, like these shows that are classics. And how do you approach this classic show for this new audience to see? What's your process?
Well, first, it was, I just wanted to mention, having recently retired, it was just so wonderful and welcoming to come back and play just the designer and work with a crew that I just turned it over to them, and they created, what I had on paper. The Fantasticks, boy, I guess I'm probably the old guard in this group that's with us tonight. This happens to be a fourth production that I have done of this show. And every time I've done the production, I'm reminded of how beautiful the music is. That's probably the first thing. It's like, oh my gosh, I forgot how those melodies are and how those tones are, and then the lyrics. And then the story, it's easy for us to say, boy meets girl, falls in love, things don't work out, we come back together, whatever. But it is so beautiful about life. So I think that was one of the things that I wanted to be sure to hold on to. I mean, there is a tradition of the show. And yes, as a designer too, you're like, oh, do I do what people have done in the past? And I really was hoping not to. And so collaborating with Joshin was a thrill, because it was very clear from the beginning that we were not doing the original show, which there's nothing wrong with that, but we wanted to do something new and fresh and today. And so I just try to start fresh. Like, even though I've done it before, I don't want to redo, or like, I don't remember that. That's what I did the last time. And so and collaborating at the beginning with the other designers and Joshin, we spent a lot of time talking about whimsical storytelling and paying a nod to what the original, which the playwrights, what their idea was. It was to be simplicity. And it still is simple. We've probably amped it up a little bit in production, but it still is a very simple story, and you don't have scenery flying in and flying out, and the audience is asked to use their imagination, which I personally feel like, that's where theater started. So just, imagine this, imagine that. And using a couple of phrases, actually, as a designer, this is where I start with, is phrases from the director, and whimsical, fresh, a little campy. I found myself looking at paying a little homage to old theater styles like vaudeville. I had some inspiration from grand storytellers like ringmasters in the circus, and also spent time with, some of the stereotyped characters that this play is written around. In terms of the father, there is some reference to commedia dell'arte with things like the pantaloni and ideas like that. But then finding a freshness to that, creating our own world that was heightened, theatrical, bright and colorful. The scenic designer gave me a fabulous palette to which tends to be a little neutral for these people to literally pop, almost like I know early on Joshin talked about a pop-up theater. So these actors in their clothes sort of pop up on stage, and as they move around the stage, you see them. And then basically it's like, who are these people? And there's 8 of them. And so at the very beginning, it's very clear that El Gallo is his character name, but he's also the narrator. And in other plays, he's called the lead player. Other times he might be the MC, a la Cabaret. And then he has an assistant called the mute. And I really wanted those two to be, they are the architects, they are the storytellers, they make things happen. And I literally went to sort of design 101. What are the strongest colors on stage? Red, black, and white. And if you think about things that you've seen in the past, ringmasters in a circus tend to wear red and black. So I wanted them to be a group unto themselves. The lovers to be, without a doubt, lovers that's supposed to be together. So they're in blues, kind of like this very soft, beautiful, you just want to take them home. The fathers who are comedic, and they're the first layer of clowns. And I wanted to, and they're also some commedia stock characters. So I wanted them to be loud and over the top and bold. And then you have the actors who scripturally say they're the old tired troop of people that come along for, they'll find an audience anywhere, and they sort of are elements of the stage. And so it was from that point I had groups, and everything that I worked from design wise was to keep people in their group, but then how the group together made a whole story. And I think I'm very happy with it. It's a wonderful, whimsical storybook that you just open your eyes and look at them stand on stage, and it's like, I get it.
It is very, very inviting and beautiful work, and we're so fortunate to have you back with us. Denise was our costume shop manager for many, 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 many years, and just graduated, retired, and you designed many shows for us while you were a costume shop manager, but now back as just the designer, which is of course just fantastic.
Yeah, and it was to come back and do this show, which has a special place in my heart. It was sort of like, well, after retiring, which is can be a challenge for most people, and I was happy to retire, and I'm working into it. But I also say I'm playing at retiring, and then to be asked back to do this particular show with a young director. I'd worked with Josh Yin before and was excited to work with a young director. And I've worked with Davis on every show that he's done at Shakespeare, and Philip and Brandon I worked with. And so it was like, oh my gosh, this is what you go to school for. This is what you do the all-nighters for, to have this opportunity. And it paid off. Every moment is, I look at it and I go, this is why I do theater.
Thank you, John. As we've all mentioned, the music in this show is beautiful. It is so poetic and exciting, and just the instrumentation. There's a harp on stage. I mean, in our little band, if you will. Tell me about your approach to this show, a show that has some very famous songs, Try to Remember and Soon It's Gonna Rain. How did you approach this to make it fresh and exciting? And how do you deal with some of the songs that aren't as famous in the production?
Yeah, that's a good question. Those songs are iconic, especially Try to Remember and Soon It's Gonna Rain. Recording artists have been recording those for the last 60 plus years, some of the most famous singers in the world. So sometimes people know those songs. They've become like elevator songs. Mm-hmm. You hear them, you like, oh, I know this song. And so it's easy for either people to be bored of that, or to go, oh, that song, and to want to hum along. And I'm kind of, I guess, like Denise in the sense I'm a little bit of a purist when it comes to musical theater, especially. I love the shows like the Fantasticks, which is so perfectly crafted. The songs, the music, and the lyrics by Harvey Schmidt and Tom Jones, it's timeless. And Denise was talking about the three colors on stage that pop. Well, the three time signatures that we're mostly drawn to are 3/4, which is the waltz tempo, 4/4, which is the basic tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4, And then that fast one that we hear in Round and Round, and we also hear in some of the other songs like It Depends and On What You Pay, where it starts speeding up and it begins to sound like a circus and it sounds frantic. We're kind of drawn to those classic tempos, if you will. Modern theater has become layered and sometimes complicated, not in a bad way, in a great way. But then what we've had to do is to bring modern audiences up a level as they begin to listen to contemporary pieces and kind of whet their appetite and teach them how to listen to these new kinds of beats and rhythms and sounds. And I think with the Fantasticks, maybe the downside is that they are so hummable and so singable that it's easy to kind of fall into that. And I have loved working with Josh Ian and kind of he new school, me kind of old school, coming together, and it's been a great mesh. And really listening to his vision for it and saying, okay, how can we inject something fresh and new? We can't change the tempos, really. We can't change the melody. It is what it is. It's kind of set in stone. But what can we do to inject some freshness and some newness? And I think because of his vision and because of what Denise has done with costumes and, of course, all of the creative team, I think it's made it easy to take these songs and to just breathe a new life into them. That's what you do every time, you're doing something repertory that's been done for years and years and years. And oh my goodness, this is 42 years, over 17,000 performances. How do you make that fresh? I think it is. I really believe it is. I've been probably seeing this show for 40 some years, even since I first got to New York City, and now here I am doing it. And I think we've done a great job of doing that. And the actors themselves have worked really, really, really hard, each and every one of them, to learn their parts, to sing them with newness, a vision, and to breathe life, because they are timeless songs and timeless lyrics. They are, yes, there's some comedy, as Denise said, there's some commedia dell'arte. There's, it's a pastiche on so many things, isn't it? I mean, there's operetta, there's folk music, there's little leans and homages to all different types of music within the structure of the songs. But they are telling, through the lyric and through these simple melodies, they're telling just timeless stories of love and of betrayal, and then of forgiveness and redemption, all different kinds of wonderful tropes that we all experience in life. And that's, I think, why audiences have been drawn to this show. And I think it's why it is the longest running musical in the history of the world, and why people just are so drawn to it. They just keep coming back to see and to listen to the Fantasticks. As far as the harp and the piano, that's classic. Every time we hear that opening of the overture and you hear the gliss of the harp and the keyboard, there's something about that sound. It's familiar. It's like being home. And every time I go into rehearsal, and we're even now with our previews, I'm listening to that and I'm like, I'm at home in the theater. Here we are, musical theater at its best. And it's great. It's great. We've got a great team of musicians, and it's really going to be wonderful.
It's so exciting to hear live music with live singing in a live theater.
Oh yeah.
after
everything we've been
absence from that for a while. So it's very exciting. So to wrap up, if I could ask each one of you to, from your own perspective, tell the audience one thing that we should be looking for in the show. Is there something that, a secret, something that we would miss, something that's fantastic? And John, we can start with you, because I feel like you were getting there with what you were talking about. What from the music perspective should we be listening for? Should we be keeping an eye out or an ear out for?
I'm really big on lessons. Whether it's a cautionary tale or morality play, there's something that we can learn. And my favorite song, believe it or not, is They Were You. It reminds me of my parents, who were married for 64 years, who just recently passed. And every time I hear that lyric about, I saw this, and I saw shining stars, and I saw rainbows, and I saw big cities, and I saw big mountains. But when it came all down to it, they were you. Every wonderful thing, every blessing I have in my life, every great thing, even the challenges of life, they were you. So that's the last song, the last love song of the show. And I would really just encourage our listeners and people that would come see the show, pay close attention to each of those lyrical phrases and the way they're delivered through that very slow waltz tempo. It could probably be sung at somebody's wedding. So
it's beautiful. Denise, if we were looking for something that we shouldn't miss, what would you say that is from your perspective? And you can say it about costumes, and if you have another one about the show, because I know you love and know this show so well.
It's like picking this. Well, first, I asked the audience to look for the hankyography that Joshian put in, and it's quite delightful. I think, in general, I kind of go along with what John also said, as far as a piece of art on stage that can transport each individual, no matter how old you are or how young you are. This hits it right on the nail. And to watch on that stage, such a vast age, I don't want to say age range, I don't know what the age range is, but people like Philip and Davis who've been on the stage and people know them and they have their own people that follow them. And then to watch Maddie, who's so very young, and Damien and Valerie, and see how they bring, it's just incredible to watch them bring to life their character, their music, and just what this says is so, we complicate life so much. It's so easy to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then for people to go away and say, where am I in this play? And I think they'll see themselves in a lot of different moments, which is so wonderful and just kind of make you feel good. And also look for that fake blood.
Oh boy. Okay, Joshian, your turn. What should we look for and also maybe what do you hope we're taking away from this production as the director?
Yeah. So something to look for, definitely, more so something to listen to. I encourage people to just really listen to the text, the lyrics, yes, but also the book of the show, the script of the show. It's beautiful. It's, it pulls from Shakespeare and the poetry of it. And there's one line in particular that I heard yesterday quite differently that I had in the rest of the rehearsal. And it was, rhinestones can be beautiful too. It depends on the point of view. And that just, I think is a big lesson in the show, is a point of view, right? Like what we see is what we believe it is that we're seeing. And so I encourage the audience to take that away from the show, and to also, part of the big reason why I wanted to bring the show and give it new life is to also bring people that don't normally get a chance to play these types of roles into these roles. And so I really wanted to approach the show and being as inclusive and diverse as possible. And I think we've done that well, and allowed some people that don't normally get to tell these kinds of story, that are not in woe and are not in a story that might be triggering to them, that they are just existing in happiness and in silliness. So that's something that I also would encourage the audience to look for and to lean into.
It is such a beautiful show, and it's beautiful because of all of the creative team and the onstage team and the backstage team that that puts it together. Thank you, each of you, for joining us and sharing some of your perspectives and your experiences on working and creating this show. We are so proud of it, and we're so proud of each of you. Thank you for being with us tonight. And just so everybody knows, the Fantasticks is presented by Massey Services, sponsored by Cypress Bank and Trust and Seaside National Bank and Trust. Thanks also to Orange County Government and their Arts and Cultural Affairs program for supporting this production as well. The Fantasticks runs at Orlando Shakes until February 26th. So we have this month to come out and see it. It's a perfect show to bring your Valentine. Order your tickets at orlandoshakes.org or call 407-447-1700. Don't miss our opening night in-person pre-show talk tomorrow, February 4th at 6:30, and our cast post-show talk on Sunday, February 20th. So if you're coming to either of those performances, you get a little extra bonus. And please remember, when you are in Orlando Shakes, to wear your face mask. Thank you to everyone for joining me today, and to you, thank you for watching and learning about Orlando Shakes' production of The Fantasticks. We look forward to seeing you at the theater. Thank you. Good night.